Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Thank you for joining me in my little corner of the internet where I talk all things planners, fountain pens, and fountain pen inks. Today I am doing my June currently inked review, progress update. I'll also show you my paper ink swatches and the Zentangles as well as the roses that I have painted. Let's get started. The first pen and ink combo was my Asvine C80. This is in the brown glitter, and I have this inked with Diamine Nutmeg. This has a number 8 size extra fine steel nib. Shimmer inks do so well in this huge nib. There were no issues with flow, the nib writes smoothly, and it's a fun combo to write with. I gave the ink a 9 because I love the brown with the gold shimmer, the flow a 10, and the comfort level a 9. Here's a look at all of the paper swatches. So if you're not familiar with these, I swatch these in my Hemlock and Oak notebook with the Archivist 70 GSM paper, and then I compare it to Tomoe River, Rhodia, Midori, Iroful, Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank. These three I purchased from Yamamoto Papers at the San Francisco Pen Show, and then the Iroful paper was given to me by a pen friend. And looking through all the papers, it's interesting how much more gray the ink looks on the Iroful paper, and a little bit more gray actually on the Tomoe River paper, and a tiny bit of gray on these two. But generally, the shimmer is going to look consistent, but generally the other ones look more brown. And then we have here the Zentangle. This pattern is from Varney Kakarni, and I will link their account, their Instagram account, in the description below. What I love about Zentangles is how you can see the different areas where the ink is pooling because you're going over the same area over and over again. But it's just such a fun way to use your pen and ink that's not just about writing something out. I find these so meditative, and I love the overall picture once it's done. Then we have in my Me Plus planner, this is the passport size. I also paint roses with all of the inks, and I love this because then I still get to see the effect of the ink on another paper, but this time painting with it. And you can definitely see on this paper, it looks a little bit more gray than brown. So that is my Asvine C80 with Diamine Nutmeg. The next pen and ink combo is my Walltown pens. This is in the Watts model in the Glinda. Just how fun are those pink sparkles and shimmers here. And I've inked it with Andurilium Tulip Moth Warm. I love how pink this ink looks compared to the browns. It has beautiful shading and great flow. I gave the ink a 10 because I love this pinky brown, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Walltown Watts a 9. And there's Andurilium Tulip Moth Warm on all the different papers. It definitely looks darker and a little bit more burgundy in this swatch, a little bit more burnt copper brown in the Archivist paper, and it looks more pink on the Tomoe River paper, and a little bit just more coppery brown on Rhodia and Midori. And then Iroful, it looks very brown, a little bit more flat on this one, and then a little bit lighter, but more pink on the Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, and the Bank. And then when we look at this Zentangle, I don't actually remember where this one is from. I saw this on a post in Simona's Discord group, and I found the pattern, and I can't remember where it's from. But this one really took a lot of focus and concentration to make sure that I got the pattern right. And I love how this turned out. It looks like one of those kaleidoscope things that you see in the telescope where it just circles over and over again. That's what it reminds me of. Really fun pattern. So that is my Walltown Pens Glinda with Andurilium Tulip Moth Warm. I keep forgetting to do this. These are the roses that I painted in my Me Plus planner. It definitely looks more copper on this paper than you would think that the brown would look like, but Andurilium Tulip Moth Warm. The next pen and ink combo is my Leonardo Momento Zero in Winter Sunrise. This has an extra fine nib, and I have it inked with Tasha Ume Murasaki. I love that. I thought this was a great match for this month. I loved this pairing. This extra fine nib is so smooth. It had great flow, and the ink had beautiful shading. I had no complaints. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Momento Zero a 9. Then we take a look at how Ume Murasaki performs on all of the papers. Look at how much more purple it looks on the Aurofil paper, but then a little bit more brown burgundy on the Archivist, even the Aurofil, and then a little bit more coral on the Midori, but I think that's just because that's the cream colored paper. And then you can see some chromo shading kind of happening here in the areas that it's pooling. But generally, I say generally, the one that stands out the most, I think, is the Aurofil paper, just with how much more purple it looks than the rest of the ink swatches. And then when we look at this Zentangle, this one is another one from Varni Kekarni. I really like the Zentangles where you have one square, but then when you rotate the pattern, it creates this bigger pattern here. I really, really like that. Then we have the painting on the Me Plus paper. Look at how much more pink it looks here when you add a little bit more water. And then a little bit more burgundy and brown in here. Really love the way that that looks. So that is my Leonardo Momento Zero Winter Sunrise with Tasha Ume Murasaki, a great pairing. The next pen and ink combination is my Pilot Kakuno. This is in the Madarome Pink or the Rosy Dusk, and I have it inked with Sailor Shikiori Yozakura, like the last drops I have of this ink. What a lovely pairing. I may need a bottle of this light purple pink ink that has good flow and great shading. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Kakuno an 8. And here are the lovely paper swatches of Sailor Shikiori Yozakura. This one didn't show as much variation between the different papers, but I still love that purpley pink color. Looks really lovely. It looks a little flat on the Aurofil paper out of all of the papers. I don't know if you can tell what I mean by flat. It just doesn't look like it has any depth, whereas you can see a little bit of texture on all of the other papers here. And then when we look at the Zentangle pattern, another one from Varni Kekarni, I really like this one because I don't normally like the patterns with curves or circles or half circles or anything because I think mine are always so wonky. But when you look at the one big picture here, it actually looks really, really cool. And then when we do the painting of the rose on the Me Plus planner paper, I really love the different saturation levels. And even in this area, it looks like there's a little bit of like yellow or orange happening there. I really like how painting with the ink brings out those different colors. So that is my Pilot Kakuno in Rosy Dusk with Sailor Shikiori Yozakura. The next pen I have inked is my Platinum and Hachimonjiya Hatsuyuki, and this is inked with Kobe Milk Chocolate. Oh, beautiful. I truly enjoyed writing with this combo. I love the crisp 14 karat fine nib, and the ink had great flow. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Platinum a 9. So there are the ink swatches for Kobe Milk Chocolate, and I feel like I've done this before, but notice how much more pink or coral it looks here. And actually, my apologies, more pink here, more coral with the Rhodia and the Midori, and look at how much more orange it looks on the onion skin, the Yamamoto bank, and the bank, and then like more pink on the Aurofil. So, so interesting. And then if we take a look at the Zentangle, I really like this. The really fine line of the Platinum is just perfect for a Zentangle like this. So that, oh, before I forget, I always seem to forget, is the rose for Kobe Milk Chocolate. Let me find it. There we go. Look at just the way that that shades. It's really, really stunning. So that is my Platinum Hatsuyuki with Kobe Milk Chocolate. Next, we have my Benu Oat in Luster, and I have it inked with Diamine Sepia. I've actually already used this ink once this year, so I won't be showing the rose that I painted with it, but I will show you the Zentangle and the paper swatches. This was a perfect match, and I love that I'm using inks more than once in a year. This had great flow and great shading. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Benu Oat a 9. So I've actually done the paper swatches for Diamine Sepia before, and I didn't realize that I was repeating myself until after. But just look at the way that this ink looks on all the different papers. I really love the golden brown on the Archivist and the Tomoe River paper. But look at how much lighter it is on the onion skin. It's definitely looking more yellow than brown on that paper. And then we have this Zentangle. I don't remember where this was from in particular. It was from an Instagram reel and I can't remember it now. But I love the way that this just looks so intricate. And really all you do is like just focus on that one pattern and do it over and over again. And then you just get this great result once it's done. I love Zentangles for that, where the one grid done over and over again just gets this beautiful masterpiece. And I'm giving myself a lot of credit here, but it's just so fun to be able to create something that looks like that. And then when we'll look at, actually, like I said, I won't show you the rose because the rose had already been done once before, but here we go. That's my Benu Oat in Luster with Diamine Sepia. Next, we have my Jinhao 20 in white rose gold. And this actually has the Pilot Vanishing Point nib in it. It's the 18 karat fine nib that's in here. And I have it inked with Monteverde Aeronite. I struggled with this so much. The evaporation issues were just awful. But once you got the pen writing, it was actually great. I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 4, or if I could give it lower, I would just because of the evaporation issues. And I gave the comfort level of the pen a 7. Unfortunately, probably the least favorite pen and ink combination that I've ever had that I can remember. However, the ink does look beautiful on all of the different papers. I feel like it's more of a Kelly green. I really like that, but look at how much more different it looks on the Tomoe River paper than it does on like the onion skin. It's just a little bit brighter on those papers. And then when we look at the Zentangle, another one from Varney to Kearney, you can see the evaporation issues here where the ink was darker, and then here it actually mellowed out to the color that it was actually supposed to be. I definitely struggled with the hard starts with this particular pen, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I tried the silicone grease on here and it did absolutely nothing. So I don't know. It was great using the Pilot 18 karat fine nib in here, but I might take it out and just try and put it in a different pen or in another vanishing point. Who knows? And then the rose that I had painted looks like this. It's actually really lovely. I really like that green Monteverde Aeronite, and I'm happy with how that ended up turning out. So that is the Jinhao 20 in white rose gold with Monteverde Aeronite. Now we have my Franklin-Christoph in Ascension Wing. This is in the model 31, and I have it inked with Pilot Iroshizuku Shin Ryoku. I actually really like this ink, and I can't believe how I disliked it before. It's a beautiful color, it has great shading, and has great flow. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Model 31 a 9. So there's Shin Ryoku on all the different papers. Again, I think it just looks so different on the onion skin. And then it looks more teal on the Aerofil paper. I mean, it is like a darker green, but it does look a little bit more teal here. Yeah, really interesting how these different papers look that much more different. And then when we look at the Zentangle, it's another one by Varney Kearney. I really like this one because when you look at just like the individual grid, just like that, you don't expect that you're going to get like circles between each and every one. And that's what I love about these Zentangles, is that when you put them together, they create bigger shapes in the finished picture. And then we have the rose that I painted on the Me Plus planner paper. I added a little bit more water here to see if I would get a little bit more chromo shading. Not so much, but it's such a beautiful color, and I can't believe that I didn't like this before. So that is my Franklin-Christoph in the Ascension Wing with Pilot Iroshizuku Shin Ryoku. Now we have my Aurora 88 in Mantova, and this has an 18 karat extra fine nib, and I have it inked with Bunk Box Cinderella's Slipper. What a lovely light blue-gray ink. It has above average flow and great shading. However, my Aurora 88 nib still needs a little bit of tuning. I gave the ink a 10, and I feel like I've given almost every ink a 10, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Aurora 88 a 9. Here's what Bunga Box Cinderella Slipper looks like on all the different papers. It's pretty consistent throughout, not a lot of chromo shading happening here. Although on the Arofal paper, it does look a little bit different, a little flatter on that paper. And then we have another Zentangle by Varney Kikarni. I love their patterns. They're just so easy to follow and so well laid out, and they all just look wonderful. I really liked this one, and I think, no, I didn't make a mistake in this one. There was a previous one that I had made a mistake, and I was like, oh yes, I did. See there, I could barely tell. But yes, there's a little mistake on that one. Doesn't follow the pattern as exact as it should. But I barely even noticed when I was trying to even show you. So here we go. And then I painted Bunga Box Cinderella Slipper into the roses. And you can see some chroma shading happening here when you add a little bit of water to the ink. So there we go. We have my Aurora 88 Mantua with Bunga Box Cinderella Slipper. Next up, we have my Esterbrook SD, and this is in the Blue Moon. I have it with an extra fine nib with a reverse architect, and this is inked up with Diamine Burr. What a fun combination. There were no issues with the flow, but the shimmer was a little inconsistent in longer writing sessions. This was so fun to use. I gave the ink a 9, the flow an 8, and the comfort level of the SD a 10. There's Diamine Burr on all the different papers. Shimmer inks don't seem to have too much chromo shading happening here, so it looks pretty consistent across all of the papers. And then we have another design by Varney Kikarni. This one I felt like really messed with my brain when I look at it all, but I love where you have the pen just going over the same spot over and over again, and how those spots really seem to jump out at you, kind of like a 3D drawing. And then we have the painting on the Mini Plus paper here, sorry, Mini Plus Me Plus paper here, and it does look a little lighter, but then I did add a little bit of water here to try and see if any of that chromo shading would happen. And it's just lovely. I love that blue with the blue shimmer. Really perfect match with the Blue Moon. So that is my Esterbrook SD in Blue Moon with Diamine Burr. Now we have my Laben Rosa in Cracked Ice. This has an extra fine steel nib, and it is inked with Diamine Snow Globe. This nib handled the shimmer so well, and the shading is just stunning. This was a great pairing. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Laben Rosa a 9. This one surprised me when I swatched it on all the different papers, because the Archivist to My River paper, Rhodia, and the Midori, and even the Arofal, it shows off the blue and a little bit of purple here. And then when you get to the onion skin and the Yamamoto bank and the bank, this looks teal. It looks teal on these papers, which is so interesting to me. And then this one kind of looks a little bit lighter, like it's got a little bit of gray happening here. I've never really seen that happen with I guess a diamine ink, where it is just completely different on those two papers. So interesting. It actually looks like when we swatch it kind of looks like it's similar to Diamine Burr, but I'm now wondering, did I swatch the correct ink? And I'm sure I did, because you can still see a little bit of purple here. And then we have another design from Varney Kikarni. I really love the ones that are straight lines, because when you look at just the one grid that you're focusing on and then expand it, you get the areas with a little bit more of the shimmer. And then the only thing with the shimmers is, because of longer writing sessions and the shimmer kind of getting settled at the bottom of the converter, you don't get an even distribution of it unless you are constantly agitating your pen. But I don't mind it too much. It's still a really pretty Zentangle. And then we have the painting. Here we go. This one is Diamine Snow Globe on the Me Plus paper. I love the way that looks. You've got the blurple with a little bit more purple and then the blue shimmer. Really, really love how that turned out. So that is my Laben Rosa in Cracked Ice with Diamine Snow Globe. And last but not least, we have my Sailor Hachimonjia in Geo Amethyst. This has an 18 karat fine nib, and it is inked with Sailor Manyo Fuji. What a stunning pairing. The ink does shade well, but it feels a little dry in this pen. I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 7, and the comfort level of the Pro Gear size an 8. So there's Sailor Manyo Fuji on all of the papers, and you can see how similar it looks on the Archivist, the Chamoy River, Rhodia, and then even the Aerofil. And then on Onion Skin, it's got a little bit more pink, and there's even a little bit of green coming out on the Midori. But then look at the way that it looks on the Yamamoto Bank and the Bank. It's the blue that's coming out, and then there's a little bit of purple and green happening in the areas that are a little bit more saturated. So interesting. And then we have another pattern here from Varney Kikarn. Oh, was this one from? Oh, I can't actually remember which one this was from, but you could tell how fine the lines are. And this felt like a little bit of a drier ink. So some of these patterns, it felt like I was really struggling to get the ink out of the pen. And then when I painted with it, look at all of the chromo shading that's happening here. This is why I love painting with fountain pen inks, because it really brings out those chromo shading properties. Absolutely stunning. So that is my Sailor Hachimonjia in Geo Amethyst with Sailor Manyo Fuji. So there's my progress update for my June currently inked. I'm happy with how most of them turned out, but I am excited to get inked up for July. So did you think the favorites that we predicted at the beginning of June were actually my favorites? Let me know down in the comments below. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you all for watching and have yourselves a great day.